Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and call this regularly scheduled March 11th meeting to order. First, let me say that it is the golden snow that's falling that's got me sounding like this. I'm not actually sick. I know I sound like I'm dying. If I begin to get annoying to my fellow commissioners up here, I'll step aside and let Mark run the meeting. Other than that, I think I can make it through to the end. I do have one. I'm going to pull off the first proclamation. In my hay fever, I wasn't able to get the family here, and I want the family to be here before we read that proclamation into the record. So with that change, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Hang on one second. Was there another change? Do you want to give me a hint, or I can just look through? It's number what? Number 9. Oh, we're pulling. Oh no, it's just moving from a quasi to a legislative, and from first to second reading. Okay, with those 2 changes to the agenda as it was published, do I have a motion to approve the agenda? I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Maison. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Please welcome Pastor Ralph Williams from Newberry Church of Nazarene to the podium to give tonight's invocation. After the invocation, if you remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, it will follow directly. Pastor, thank you, sir.
Thank you. May we pray. Father, we are amazed, sometimes overwhelmed, to be a part of your great plan. We thank you for your presence with us. We thank you for the way that you choose to work with humanity in this great creation of yours. We thank you for places like Newberry, places that we live and places that we work where your presence is evident every day. And so we pray that you would continue to make your presence felt with us. We pray tonight in particular that you would give this group clarity, vision, courage, and charity. We thank you and we pray all of this in the wonderful name of Jesus. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. That was beautiful. And that's actually going to take us to public announcements. Anybody from the public here to speak to the commission tonight on something that's not on the agenda, you have 2 minutes to do so. If you have a more controversial comment to make to the commission, there's a longer public comment meeting at the end of the night. Any public comments? Seeing none. All right. Seeing none. That's going to move to the consent agenda. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it was published.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Clark. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That's going to take us to legislative public hearing, second reading of ordinance 2024-10/CPA 2403. Mr. Attorney.
Sir.
That's all right. We moved a little bit quicker than you probably thought.
Got it. This is the resolution of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, approving with appropriate conditions and safeguards construction plans for, I'm sorry. There we go. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, approving with appropriate conditions and safeguards construction plans for Avalon Woods Phase 4A.
I think we're on the wrong one.
Okay, well, I did it right.
It is number 5, but it's ordinance 2024-10. Is that what you're on?
24-10.
I have the. No. Yeah. Oh, Miss Judy to the rescue.
Good, thank you, Judy.
Stand up for you to read it. It's this one right here.
Number 5.
It's right here.
All right, let me put 2.
I'll get this out of your way.
Sure. 3.7 acres. That's it?
Yes.
I got it, I think.
Yeah.
2024-10.
24-10, okay. Mr. Mayor, there's an ordinance number 2024-10, CPA 24-03, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to an amendment of the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry comprehensive plan of 50 or fewer acres of land under the small-scale development amendment procedures established under the provisions of Section 163.3187 of the Florida statutes as amended, providing for a change in future land use classification from agricultural less than or equal to one dwelling unit per 5 acres to commercial on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, tax parcel number 01924-002-000, consisting of approximately 3.7 acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2024-10 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. John Paul, you want to take us through this second reading?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. John Paul Perez, Planning and Economic Development Department. This is second reading. There have been no changes to the ordinance as originally presented, so I'm going to keep it brief, just introduce the request, provide you staff's recommendation and findings, which remain the same.
Sounds like
And yes, so the ordinance before you tonight, ordinance 2024-10, file number CPA 2403, for our property located on State Road 26, just east of Tropic Traditions and whatnot, in that area on the south side. The parcel number is 01924-002-000. The owner is Intellectual Partners, LLC. Andrew Fuller and Chris Torrance, I believe it is, are the two gentlemen that make up Intellectual Partners, LLC. It'll be the new location for the All Florida Fencing Company. And the request is to just change the property from agriculture to commercial intensive for the zoning district, but in this ordinance, we're talking about land use, and that's just going to go from agriculture to commercial. Following this will be the zoning presentation. And that's effectively the extent of my presentation. We do find it consistent with the land development regulations, comprehensive plan. We are still recommending approval on second reading. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does the Commission have any new questions for John Paul between first and second reading? No? Then I'll have a motion.
So
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin and a second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments, questions, motion on the floor for the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next item is quasi-judicial, so I'm going to go ahead and read the quasi-judicial proceeding into the record. Because we're in a quasi-judicial procedure, this means the Commission will stop being a legislative body and become a judicial board. That means we have to follow certain rules and adhere to a different standard of decision-making. The primary rule must follow concerns testimony. The substantial and competent evidence standard must be met when the judicial board makes a decision. This standard states the following, and I quote, all public testimony when taken under oath, everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into evidence. The giving of opinion testimony is limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record. I'm going to ask the attorney if you'd please read into the record on second reading the ordinance by title only.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of 3.7 acres, more or less, pursuant to an application amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from agricultural A to commercial intensive CI on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida. Tax parcel number is 01924-002-000, as described in Exhibit A, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2024-11, LDR 24-07, upon its second reading by title only.
Thank you, sir. At this point, I'm going to ask the clerk if you'd swear in any of the applicants, staff, participants wishing to speak tonight. We have two quasi-judicials tonight. If you're here to speak to either one of them, we can get you sworn in right now, save a little bit of time.
Starting on my left, please state your name for the record.
John Paul Perez.
Margaret Howard. Do you hereby swear is the truth?
Thank you, ma'am. And I'm going to ask the commissioners to disclose any ex parte communication. Remember, ex parte communication is Any conversations or transmission of information that may have bearing or influence on any voting member's decision. Let's go ahead and do that for both quasis tonight. Commissioner Coleman?
None.
Commissioner Clark? Commissioner Martin?
No, sir.
Commissioner Mazon?
None.
I'm a non-voting mayor, but I have nothing to disclose as well. I'm going to now explain the order of presentations we're going to follow for each of the quasi-judicial items before us tonight. First, we will hear from the staff overview. Then the applicant has the opportunity to make a presentation with no time limit. Then we'll hear from the staff with their report and recommendation, also with no time limit. I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status for either of the quasi-judicials tonight, so that's going to move us straight to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak to either of these quasi-judicials have 3 minutes to do so. Then we'll have cross-examination from the applicant, cross-examination from the staff. Member decision-making body through the chair can ask questions of the participants, staff, or applicant. And then we will hear final arguments, and then the city attorney will advise decision-making bodies put the law and factual findings that must be made to approve or deny the application. After that, we'll hear deliberations. After deliberations, we'll have a motion to approve, continue, or deny. That's the order we'll follow, and let's start with the staff overview.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, John Paul Perez, Planning and Economic Development Department. This is also second reading of the rezoning ordinance, that is ordinance 2024-11 for file number LDR 24-07. For rezoning the property located at 21831 West Newberry Road from agricultural A to commercial intensive CI. This petition, this ordinance was dependent upon the adoption of ordinance 2024-10, which was just adopted by the commission. And so we can now proceed with this request to rezone, remarkably similar to the first reading. So I'm going to save you guys some of the details on the review and analysis and goes straight to the request and then staff's findings and recommendation. The applicant is here to answer questions. They have not prepared a presentation, and they can come up at any time to answer any questions that might be more appropriate for them to answer. So again, this property located at parcel number 01924-02-000 has been requested to be rezoned from agricultural A to commercial intensive. Staff has completed their review and finds that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and land development regulations. We are recommending approval of this ordinance on second reading, and that completes my presentation. I'm available for any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Since I heard the applicant doesn't have a presentation, that's going to move us to public comment. Any members of the public wishing to speak to this agenda item, you have 3 minutes to do so. Seeing none, that's going to move us. Did you hear anything you'd like to cross-examine, sir? No? All right. Member decision-making body, do you have any questions
No, sir.
on second reading? No? Okay. Mr. Attorney, would you please advise decision-making bodies, applicable law and factual findings?
Mr. Mayor, it is substantial and competent evidence standard.
Thank you so much. We'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll have a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That's going to take us to item 7. We'll go back to legislative. We're still into the quasi. If anyone new enters the room, I'll have to read all that again, but if no one new enters the room, we can just leave that in for the record. Mr. Attorney, would you please read on second hearing ordinance 2024-07/CPA 2313 in the record?
Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to the amendment of the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan under the expedited amendment procedures established in sections 163.31842 and subparagraph 3 of the Florida statutes, and in conformance with sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 of the Florida statutes, providing for a change in future land use classification from agricultural to materially oriented industrial development on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida. The south portion of tax parcel numbers as follows. It's 01875-000-000, and 01875-001-000, consisting of approximately 50 acres of land, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2024-07, CPA 23-13, upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Uber, you going to come down? Might have to adjust that microphone just a little bit. I think we got it on Gary's setting.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is the second reading for Ordinance 2024-07 for future land use map amendment from agriculture use to material-oriented industrial use on a 50-acre land. This is the second reading, so I'll just give you the overview and the staff recommendation. We have the applicant here, but they don't have a presentation. If you have any questions, you can come here. So the property is located on the south partial of parcel 018750000-000 and 01875-001-000. The petition is by CHW Professional Consultant. Owners are Norfleet Jr. and Catherine Bell. And as I said, it is the from agriculture to material land use, material-oriented industrial use. The subject property was strategically chosen for industrial resource base because of the site proximity to applicants' other properties and development project in the city of Newberry. We have the applicants here, but they don't have a presentation at present. This has been to Planning and Zoning Board, first commissioner meeting, and now it's a small scale, so we will have the second hearing, and then we will send it to the Department of Commerce for adoption. Staff find the request consistent with the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Regulation. There has been no new question asked on this. Thus, we recommend the City Commissioner to approve Ordinance 2024-07 CPA 13 in the second reading. If you have any question, I'm here.
Thank you. We got any new questions between first and second reading for Ms. Uber? Sorry. Seeing none, I'll entertain it. Did you want to give a presentation?
I won't go through the whole presentation,
All right.
but I'm Margot Maurer with CHW here on behalf of the applicant. We want to rest on our presentation from February 26th and incorporate that into the record.
You want to do that for the quasi-judicial upcoming as well?
Yes.
All right.
Please.
Wonderful.
Respectfully request for your approval tonight.
Okay. All right. Any new questions now?
No.
All right. I'll have a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Coleman. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
No. This is rezoning for the 50 roll call.
No, you didn't say. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the idea.
Commissioner Coleman.
Aye.
Commissioner Clark.
Aye.
Commissioner Martin.
No.
Commissioner Maison is a no. Motion passes 3-1 with Commissioner Maison in dissent. Now we move to quasi-judicial. We're still in quasi-judicial. Nobody new enter the room. Wonderful. Mr. Attorney, would you please read in the record on second reading ordinance 2024-08/LDR 2318?
An ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the rezoning of approximately 50 contiguous acres more or less pursuant to an application by the property owner of said acreage, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from the agricultural A zoning district to the industrial I zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, located on the south of tax parcels numbers 01875-000-000 and 01875-001-000, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2024-08, LDR 23-18, upon its second reading by title only.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
We've already done swearing in, but if anybody realized that they wanted to speak to this agenda item, seeing nobody, all right. We've already done ex parte. I don't need to go back through. So, Ms. Uba, give us a staff presentation. They don't have a presentation, so move right into your recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Uma Surmishta, Planning and Economic Development. I am reading the Ordinance 2024-08, LDR 2318 for rezoning from agriculture to industrial use on 50-acre land. As this is the rezoning and second hearing, I'll just go to the overview and then the recommendation. The parcel is located south of parcel parcel 018750000-000 and 01875-001-000. Petition is by CHW Consultant, owner are Norfleet and Catherine Bell. Changing from agriculture to industrial. Staff find the request consistent with the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Regulation, and industrial resource space use or any activity shall require special permit on this land. With that, I recommend City Commissioner to approve Ordinance 2024-08, LDR 2318 on second reading. I'm here for any questions.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Any members of the public wishing to speak to this agenda item, you have 3 minutes to do so. Seeing none, did you want to have any cross-examination? Did you like what she said? Okay, good. Then we're going to come members of the decision-making body. You got any questions? Commissioner Barton?
A minute ago, you had just said that the applicant didn't have any presentation, but she was just mentioning, I don't know if it makes any difference, she was resubmitting that. Ms. Margot?
Rest on testimony
Yeah.
of the February 22nd.
You got that? Okay, cool.
Any other questions of the applicant staff? All right. Would you like to make a final argument? Either one of you? You don't have to. Mr. Attorney, would you please advise the making bodies applicable on factual
The
findings?
competent and evidence is standard.
Thank you so much. We'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll have a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman, second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, Commissioner Coleman?
Aye.
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Martin?
Aye.
Commissioner Maison?
No.
Motion passes 3-1. Commissioner Maison in dissent. Sorry, I missed that first time. I appreciate it. And also, before we move on to the next agenda item, between P and Z and second reading, we've had a lot of conversation about that agenda item. And I just want to take note that our staff, legal team, clerk's office, applicant has done such a fantastic job of addressing everybody's concerns that we didn't have one public comment here tonight about that. And I think that is a testament to how much our staff works to make sure that by the time we get to this stage, right, that everything that they know you're going to ask, they've already addressed it. So I think it's just worth pointing that out, what an amazing team that we have that works so well with our applicants and our community to make sure that everybody's being heard. All right, I'll get off my soapbox and move on to number 9, which is legislative second reading of ordinance 2024-01. Mr. Attorney, would you please read that out into record?
Yes, sir. This is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending Chapter 82, Article 1, Section 82-3, entitled Downtown Plat Additions, providing for the closing, abandoning, release, and vacation of public alleyways as shown on the plat entitled Original Newberry, Chapman and White's Edition, Plat Book A, page 95 of the Alachua County Official Records, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance 2024-01, VAC 24-01, as read by title only.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Uba, I think you're taking us through this one. Unless Shanice's throwing you a curveball, because she likes to throw me curveballs, so I want to see her throw other people a curveball every once in a while.
Okay, thank you,
See, she
Mr.
just
Mayor.
took that curveball and she's going to go in stride with it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Uma Sarmista, Planning and Economic Development. I'm reading Ordinance 2024, VAC 24-1. We are amending Chapter 82, Title 1, Article 1, Section 82-3. I'm sorry, there is a M there, which should not be there. It's a downtown plat addition. This is the second reading. Just to give an overview, the City of Newberry would like to amend Chapter 82, Article 1, Section 82-3, entitled Downtown Plat Addition, providing closing, abandoning, releasing, and vacating of portion of public alley as shown in the plat entitled Original Newberry, Chapman and White Edition, Plat Book A, page 95, Alachua County Official Record. So this has already been a list of downtown plat, which was before added to the downtown alley vacation right of way, but we are just adding the next one, which is Chapman and White Edition, and that to just the west of State Road 45, US 41 and 27, that is northwest to 50th Street. Staff find the request compiling with the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Regulation. Staff recommends City Commissioner to approve Ordinance 2024-01. No current or future improvement plan is planned by the city, and right of way is split and returned to abating landlords. With that, I would like to request the Commissioner to approve 2024-01, VAC 2401 on second reading.
Come up with any new questions between first and second reading for this? Seeing none, I'll have a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion from Ricky Coleman, Commissioner Coleman, second from Commissioner Martin. Any comments or questions from the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous again. That's going to move us to item 10, another second reading of ordinance 2024-06/LDR 2406. Mr. Attorney.
Mr. Mayor, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending the text of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations as amended to amend Section 4.2.40 Solar Energy Facilities relating to establishing standards for the development of solar farms, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. Appropriate motion will be to pass ordinance number 2024-06 upon its second reading by title only.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thomas, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As stated, this is the second reading of the solar facility amendment that we proposed and the commission has approved on first reading. Ordinance 2024-06. We'll get right to the changes. So right now there's a minimum of a 10-foot buffer that would be extended to a 25-foot buffer, setback, not just buffer, but a setback in areas where there's existing vegetation that within that setback that would be left undisturbed. And then when the facility is adjacent to existing residential, then they would be required to plant a 20-foot vegetative buffer within that 25-foot setback that would be, and it would be required to grow to essentially opacity within 5 years. And that native plants that would grow to screen that within 5 years. There originally was a chain link fencing requirement that's been removed, and it's going to be allow field fencing to promote wildlife movement through the fencing so it wouldn't trap the small wildlife in there. No change to height restrictions, the panel height, the signage, none of that. And they still do have to come in for site development plan approval. Staff's recommendation is to enact ordinance 2024-06 by the commission on second reading.
All right. Does the board have any questions for Brian? No? I'll have a motion. Go ahead, Commissioner Martin.
Yeah, my only comment is, it's more restrictive than what we had originally. It personally is not as restrictive as I would necessarily like, but I'll take what we can get at this point. So at this time, I move to enact ordinance 24-06.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Martin.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor for the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Excuse me.
Hello, Jeff Holcomb, and just want to first say thank you all for bringing this forward. I know it seems like we've been talking about this for a while. It's been about a year, but I do appreciate all the work that you all have done and listened to our concerns and all the work that staff has done. I echo some of the commissioners here. I wish we had gone further, but it is better than what we had. I think that we probably may have to come back and revisit these when Florida Renewable Partners submits their site plan. I have a feeling that the wording of this are just broad enough that they will try and get out of this. I count, I've got like a map here, 40 different properties that would qualify that are zoned agricultural or whatever, but have a residence on them, an existing residence. And new houses are popping up all the time on 337. So I have a feeling that probably if we're talking about 40 or 50 houses in 2 years, they're not going to want to be planting a 20-foot vegetative buffer for all those houses. So to hold their feet to the fire, I don't think that this ordinance has enough teeth. I think that they will probably try and wiggle out of the term adjacent, if it means across the street, across the county line, if there's an existing buffer. We say, no, it includes that, but I don't think that it actually stipulates that. All that being said, I do appreciate all the work that's been done and appreciate hearing our concerns. And I look forward when the site plan does come forward. Hopefully this will be for public comment again. I hope to keep working with the solar company. I mean, they've already changed project managers a few times. I imagine it probably will change a few more times before this is all said and done. So again, I just want to reiterate, they've told us, the citizens, they've told staff, here in presentations, they've told us a lot of things. It's not really worth anything. If we don't have it in writing, it's not worth much. So what we have right now is this ordinance, which is good. It's an improvement, but that's all we've got. So whatever they've told us, they're like, oh no, we won't put the inverters, near the property line. They could change their mind. They can really do whatever they want because we haven't said anything contrary to that. Anyway, so that's all I'm going to say, but thank you again. I appreciate everyone's time, and I appreciate you bringing this forward, because you didn't have to do anything at all. You could have just left it on the books as it was, so I do appreciate that. So again, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, sir, and I want to say thank you. You came at the beginning, you stuck all the way through all the meetings. It's not an easy thing to do. You've always been respectful. You've always been moderate, and we appreciate the civic engagement. And at the end of the day, I think there's probably everybody in here wishes it was a little bit different than what it is, but we all also recognize that it's better than where we started. And so I appreciate that level of civic commitment. Thank you so much. Any other public comment? Seeing none, come back. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That's going to take us to our one agenda item, discuss amending the LDRs to regulate commercial big boxes. We pulled this one last time because it was pretty late at night, but tonight we have miraculously managed to just sail right through.
The benefit of second readings.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This discussion is about big box retail stores, potential for coming to Newberry. I won't say that just because Publix is here, we are now on the radar, but that probably has a lot to do with it. Newberry has been discovered, so to speak, and so we feel like it's just a matter of time before we will have an opportunity for a large retail store to come in and want to get approval to develop in Newberry. So we wanted to get ahead of that and get the Commission's input, and whether the Commission is fine with that as things stand, or if there's any interest in changing regulations in advance of an application. So basically, large-scale retail establishments, often referred to as big box retailers, they can be contentious. In some communities, there's a negative connotation with them. In other communities, they're just fine with them. They can have a substantial impact in small and rural communities if you have a large presence of small to medium-sized retailers that might be affected. But there are both positive as well as negative consequences, and so you kind of have to weigh the good and the bad and decide where you want to come down on that. We figure there'll be at least one, if not more, in the near future that are coming in with an application. And basically, staff just seeks direction from the Commission, figure out what direction the Commission wants to go on this, and whether or not they'd be interested in further regulating them beyond what the current code would require, or leave things the way they are. So just briefly, right now we don't have any regulations that would regulate big box. They would only fall under the same regulations that any other size retailer would fall under. So presumably they would be on one of our corridors, and so they would fall under the commercial corridor standards. However, a kind of a twist to that would be that if these things are large enough that they could easily have a 500-foot plus deep parking lot in the front, which would then exempt the building from the corridor design standards that y'all passed last year, because they'd be beyond the 500-foot buffer or zone requirement. And so that is one consideration to look at. Just some examples, a typical Walmart about 182,000 to 250,000 square feet, 300 to 400 employees. And when you average out all the wages across from the lowest paid person up to the store manager, averages out at about $14.26 an hour right now. Of course, that is going to go up as the minimum wage goes up. Home Depot, another large big box retailer, kind of a similar thing, 105 to 217 on average size, and then 200 to 300 employees, and about the same almost same hourly wage. It's hard to read the table, but well, that's why I tried to sort of synopsize it for you. The size. This is from a tax bill here in Alachua County. Lowe's 120 to 147,000, Sam's Club 70, 160. And this is to kind of give you some perspective. So the little box up in the top left corner is your typical Main Street 2,000 square foot type business, and then various going all the way out. It says 13,000 square foot large supermarket. I think that's actually the table I pulled in. It's mislabeled. Your typical large supermarket, for instance, our Publix is going to be 56,000 square feet, so it's considerably bigger than that. That would actually be considered a small supermarket.
Hitchcock's is 25.
Yeah, our current Hitchcock's, as the city manager says, 25,000. But that's just to kind of try to give you a little bit of perspective on scale. Obviously the positives, they provide a lot of convenience and variety. You can go to a large retailer such as a Walmart or a Target or whatever and find just about anything you need. Prices are usually pretty good because they have buying power, and so they can hold down the prices. They do offer a lot of job opportunities, and especially for unskilled labor. If you've got folks in the community that need a job and they don't have any actual training, they can usually find them at one of these retailers. I already talked about pricing. And it does represent a fairly substantial increase in tax revenues. However, in my research in this, I discovered a trend that a lot of the big box retailers, and not just a Walmart, but all of them, it seems across the country, have started challenging their tax assessments and basing the challenge on the value of an empty store instead of the value of an active open store. And in some areas, they've been successful. Appears that thus far in Florida, they've been unsuccessful. Florida communities, jurisdictions have been able to fend off those challenges so far. So usually when that happens, of course, there's a dramatic reduction in the taxes that they pay. And they also, they can stimulate other activity in the community. They bring more shoppers in. It becomes a more attractive area for other developments to come in to follow. So, there are a number of positives. The just market value, here's another example of Northwest Gainesville Walmart, $10 million, a little over $10 million. And they're paying, that would equate to, so the city of Gainesville has a higher millage rate than we do, of course. It's 6.4297. Ours, I believe, right now is 5.9 even. And so ours would equate to about almost $62,000 in tax revenue for an equivalent store at a little over $10 million valuation. So it's a fairly substantial boost in the local tax revenues for one of these stores. Potential negatives, it can have a negative impact on small businesses, local small businesses. If you're a community that only has small businesses, you're going to have a much more substantial effect. Community like Newberry, we don't have as many of those small businesses because you've got so many businesses in Jonesville, and then in Trenton on the other end, you got businesses down there, and we're just now reaching the number of rooftops that we're attracting more commercial in. But likewise, the same attraction is what's going to bring a large box retailer to our area. There are criticisms about the quality of the jobs created. They're low pay, they're unskilled, they don't lead to much of anywhere. Those are some of the accusations, at least. And it could potentially have some of an impact on your local culture. It kind of adds to that sameness or as they call it, homogenization of communities, where, you can't tell the difference between one community and another because they all have the same big box retailers, they all have the same developments along their corridors and things like that. And then potentially it could be an infrastructure strain, and that usually falls under the traffic, just because of the scale of the development. They tend to generate a lot more traffic than you would with smaller retailers. And for some communities that don't have a diverse enough economy, you could become tax dependent on that single entity. I don't think Newberry would necessarily fall into that category. We have a pretty diverse tax base, but it's a consideration. And, the biggest negative impact is if they do eventually close up, they're very hard to either lease or sell to a different user, because they were custom made for that particular use. A lot of times there's not a lot of crossover potential, and so they can sit vacant for a long period of time. So, like we kind of already discussed, it really depends on your local economy and how the design of your local economy and the strength of your local economy, whether they're likely to have a negative or a positive or just a mixed benefit influence on your community. A lot of times policymakers look for a balance. It's like, well, we don't necessarily want to discourage them, but at the same time we want to have some control over them, put some reasonable limits on them, and try to strike that balance. Usually when communities do that, they're using multiple approaches, putting maximum sizes or other considerations. So coming up with some potential options, obviously taking no action at all is always the first option that's out there. After considering positives, negatives, and everything in between, Commission may decide, what, we think we're fine as we are, and we don't have a problem with the big box coming in. We think it's a good thing. You could change some zoning regulations, like I said, restrict the size of the developments, set other criteria that discourages or limits the establishment of a large-scale retailer. Change some things in the comprehensive plan to put a higher emphasis on preserving existing smaller businesses or the character of the community. Designating certain areas as off limits to large box retailers is an option that could be considered.
Before we get too far away from the zoning regulations, Brian, talk to the commission about the overlay district.
Right.
And how does the overlay district speak to big boxes? Does already require a higher level of development if a big box comes in there?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So again, if they are on one of the corridors, they would be subject to the corridor overlay district design standards. However, it could conceivably, like I said, because of the scale of these things and the size of their parking lots, you could conceivably have a situation where the parking lot falls under the guidelines, but just beyond the parking lot, you're outside the 500-foot buffer or zone, rather, and end up where the building itself doesn't necessarily have to comply. And so that might be where some zoning regulation comes to say, for a large box retailer, you have to bring them up to the front, close to the road, have limited parking around the front or sides, and then have the majority of the parking in the back of the store. In our district does kind of require, it needs either stormwater in front for green space, and then some parking, or...
And there was the total effect. As you get closer to town...
Exactly.
You bring... Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so...
Mr. Clark?
Well, we could change it where if they want to come to town, they're going to do what we tell them, or they just don't come to town.
That's what he's talking about.
I mean,
Yes, sir.
we put the vernacular, even if they're 500 feet off the road.
If we put it in the ordinance, that's where
That's
you
what
guys...
we say, we would have to
Right.
change that now to get this,
That's why he's
no
got...
matter what, that we wanted it.
We could set that standard, but
We
now
could.
is the time we could do it.
Right, I got it. So
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
okay.
Commissioner Maison?
No.
No?
That was it, no.
All right.
And then some communities have chosen to make approval of a large retailer contingent upon a conditional use permit. And so you may welcome them in, you say, if you want the conditional use permit, here's the list of criteria that we want you to comply with. And that can be, a conditional use permit can be done on a case-by-case basis. And so, you could vary the requirements a little bit from one applicant to the next.
I mean, I like that. What?
What does that look like?
That would be where you require them, like things like I said, like they have to bring the building up to the front and limit the, or not limit, but ensure that they have to do, not only comply with the overlay district standards, but you could go above and beyond that and say, in addition to those standards, because of the magnitude of this development, we also want you to do X, Y, and Z to mitigate either the aesthetics or even potentially the traffic impacts or other types of considerations. So it'd be what we already have plus additional considerations that the commission decides are appropriate.
I mean, I can see a difference between somebody on the north side of 26 and 202 wanting to put something right there as you're coming into town, and somebody that's wanting to put something that's kind of back off the beaten path a little bit, right? I can see that y'all would say, okay, that's different, right? If you're going to be the gateway as you come in, that's got to be built up a little bit nicer. If you're going to be out somewhere else, maybe not. But it also, I mean, I agree, if we wanted to be nice, because the overlay district's 500 feet, we need to say it now, get it set in stone. So I think I like the conditional, because I like to give y'all flexibility to notice that there are differences in different applications, but that also opens up another can of worms for, well, I got treated differently than they got treated, right? Was that it, Brian, or are you ready to move to?
A couple more options. Size restrictions. There are some communities that just say, we're not going to allow anything over 80,000 square feet, or, as an example. It could be whatever y'all determine is that maximum. This is usually communities that absolutely want to prevent a Walmart specifically, because that seems to be the company that gets criticized the most out there. But it's not just, it's not just Walmart. Walmart's, Target's, Home Depot's, Lowe's, they're all huge and can have an impact. And then, another avenue of exploration would be open it up to community engagement, have a workshop on it, invite people in, say, how does the community feel about this? And then weigh that with your considerations and come up with policy based on that. And, require, and this I think is in combination with a conditional use permit would be a good way to go, is require an economic and environmental impact for a large scale, over a certain maximum square footage would be required to do an economic and environmental impact prior to approval, so that when making the decision on that approval, the commission knows all of the potential range of impacts that could occur because of the development.
Brian, can you go back? Those last two seem like things that we already do for things of significance. So we have community engagement, we do that through workshops, we do it through different, and then impact assessments. I thought it was already written into our code that once you hit a certain level of size or potential impact, the applicant was responsible for doing the economic and environmental studies.
Mr. Mayor, they would be required to do, like, for instance, an environmental, like a phase 1 impact on the land, but not necessarily right now. We don't have anything that requires them to do an economic impact analysis. So the economic impact analysis would go and say, okay, based on our evaluation, we think that that it's going to have this impact on your existing businesses, or it's.
I thought there was a state law though that said, maybe is the state law saying that we have to do the economic impact if we turn them down? So if we write this, we flip that script and say they have to do the economic impact and prove to us why we should say yes. Somebody has to do
Mr. Mayor, if we as a governing body, you as a governing body, I should say, are going to make a change to the existing land development regulations, for instance, then we have to provide an impact statement to say, okay, this is going to have this type of economic impact on businesses that would fall under this new regulation or this change in the regulations. This sort of flips it back on and says, okay, what are the economic impacts to the existing businesses and the existing commercial environment in your community based on this store coming in? So they're going to be positive, going to be negative.
I mean, I definitely like that part, because otherwise I think somebody's going to be asking us to pay for some more studies. All right, keep on going.
And so, really, the recommended action is just to contemplate this and provide direction to staff whether or not the commission would like to see some changes to the land development regulations to provide some additional level of regulation to big box retailers if they come to Newberry.
So I say we ask some questions and give a little bit of feedback, and then maybe we bring this back and we got a full dais. But let's give staff something to think on. Commissioner Martin?
Brian, do you happen to catch any square footages on like the Holiday Inn Expresses or the Hampton Inns or the movie theaters or anything like that?
Mr. Mayor, we didn't really look at that in this analysis because we were just focusing on the large like retail component.
Okay.
But if you had a multi-story, say you had a hotel with a 25,000 square foot base footprint, and then you have 4 stories, then obviously you're hitting that 100,000 mark. But
That doesn't seem the same to me as a 100,000 square foot.
you're going to have different traffic impacts, for instance.
Sure.
Whereas a 100,000 square foot hotel is going to have more impacts on water and wastewater capacity or usage. The big box retailer is going to have fairly minimal impacts to that, but they're going to have a lot bigger impact in terms of the transportation network because you've got constant trips all day and all evening in and out.
Yeah, I don't. A hotel, 3-4 story hotel doesn't feel the same to me as a 100,000 square foot or 200,000 square foot single story building. Maybe bring a couple of those things back to us, or you can just send it to us via email. It would be fine too. There's potentially a lot to look around, get our mind around, and I think probably flexibility is the key. Going back to that one recommendation you were talking about, the conditional use. Yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot.
I mean, another option, Mr. Mayor, would be for again, trying to be proactive and get ahead of it. The city could contemplate getting their own economic analysis into a hypothetical store and have that analysis done by an outside firm that specializes in that, come back and say, okay, if you have a big box of this type, this retailer, here are the likely impacts that you're going to face, and then based on that, you could draft some additional policy if you think that's.
Commissioner Clark?
Brian, I know we had discussed this, the Walmarts, kind of offline, the hypotheticals. Did you ever reach out to Crawfordville and see if that Walmart came in? Because what we were talking about was the small businesses, your Ace Hardwares. You got a grocery store. If they come in with the Super Walmart, they got a grocery store. We're already getting one, and we already have one. At what point do we hurt each other by allowing the conglomerate to absorb everything? So there's a little bit of stuff here that they could hurt if they bring in the Super Walmart, I think. But there's a lot to wrap our minds around this. I ain't potentially thrilled with it. I can just say that. I'm not jumping for joy if they come here. Don't matter to me one way. They can stay out. But the potential for the land development that's around here, the people that are buying the corridors, are absolutely something's going to happen. So it's going to hit us, and it's coming fast. So these are decisions we need to probably get ahead of real quick. I think for me personally, it's how it's set back, where it's set back, and then we do make the rules what it looks like. But I know we can't regulate certain things, which I'm against the Walmart coming to town and putting 40 cash registers up front with nobody manning them. You talk about jobs, but there's 40 jobs they ain't gonna bring. So I know we can't dictate that type of stuff. So I think we just should do it and also do a town hall and let the small businesses at least give their input.
Commissioner Coleman?
You ain't got to go all the way to Crawfordville. Go to Live Oak and see what it's done to all those downtown small businesses. You can go right there and see it. Got a Walmart, Lowe's there. It's really hurt them. So that's all I got to say.
All right, Commissioner Mazon, you want to weigh in on it?
No, they're good.
Sounds good. Good job.
Okay, so I heard flexibility is the name of the game. We got to get ahead of it, and it sounded like we should try to limit the ability to come.
I'm not.
I'm not going to say that. No, I mean, you're not going to stop the growth there. But I'm on board with him. Let's just get, let's get a firm handle on this. And
Let's get a town hall with our small business people and find out.
Commissioner Bazon, what did you?
Yeah, I want to. So, I think a town hall meeting is perfect. Have we entertained maybe expanding some of our local businesses bigger, like a Super Ace Hardware?
Mr. Mayor, we're always contemplating expanding our local businesses, absolutely. But really, it's a economic decision that they have to make. For instance, for quite some time, the owner of the local Ace Hardware has been looking for a new location where build a newer, nicer, probably bigger store. Probably getting very close to that happening, just because we have so much new commercial development's going to happen on the corridor, or potentially some other locations as well. But yeah, we definitely would encourage that any way we could.
Yeah.
And with the overlay, is it possible to calculate it by square footage and acreage, depending on the business?
Not sure I understand the question.
Okay, so it's 500 feet with the overlay district. With a big box like Walmart, is it possible with bigger businesses like Walmart to be calculated? That way you don't discriminate versus Walmart versus another business coming in. The square footage and the acreage. So if the acreage is huge, your setback goes back a little further. Make sense? Yeah.
Okay, I think I understand. We certainly could make that modification. We could amend the existing overlay district to, under certain circumstances, then the boundary, the zone goes deeper, yes. Deeper the zone.
Okay, so let me just ask some questions about this town hall that you're proposing. So you want to invite the small businesses and ask them for their take on whether or not we let a big business come in?
Well, I think the impact is what we really need to see. That's why, and even if we didn't do that, I'm telling you. I believe Crawfordville did it. If you need, I'll call it there, or if we can round up a number for a commissioner, or I'll get on Google and find it myself.
Crawfordville is an example of a small
Walmart
town
that came
that
to
let
town.
a big box in a good way.
When I was living there, I do believe when they came, everybody was freaking out about the Ace Hardwares and the grocery stores and everything, and I believe that they found a happy medium, and the place still runs with everybody. Everybody's still in business. So I don't know that it's as big as we think, but we just need to, but we should at least involve our people that have a small business to even think if they've heard in their business where Ace Hardwares are around, or like I said, would it be a super or just a Walmart, or do we know? We don't have a buyer yet, right?
Yes, sir. We don't have really any way to know. I guess I would
what they
probably
build seems to be the Target. No.
everything.
Yeah, I think they come in with everything.
I mean, I think my biggest concern about big box is what Brian said when they decide to shut down. Now you just got this huge building there.
Walmart knows that.
You can't really go and do anything else with it, and then now it's kind of an eyesore.
Do it.
Mike?
Most communities don't run their own school system. I think 200,000 square foot empty building might have some potential for a community that operates a school system.
Thinking outside the box.
I'm just saying.
Or in this case, inside the box.
Or outside the big box.
Outside the big box, inside the big box. Yeah, I mean, if there's an example of a city that's able to put some regulations that kind of allow I know that this board ideologically doesn't like to pick winners and losers, right? And so we got to figure out how do we navigate that principle, right? I think that making sure that everything looks nice, right, and is attractive for the community, I think that stays within that principle. It seems to me like if you ask a bunch of smaller businesses, they're just going to say no, don't let it come because they'll choke everybody out, and I think there's some truth to that. So I think trying to figure out how to balance all of those concerns I think if we go back to the overlay districts, or if you just say no, right? Say but I also don't want to put ourselves in the corner and say, well, you've said 9,000 square foot is, or whatever the square footage is. That goes against that idea of flexibility, right? Commissioner Coleman, you were reaching for the.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, I mean, you think about everything that's in this town. I mean, even where they cook cookies here. Your tire store, your automotive, they got everything there. And it's gonna suck from their people that's, their customers. That's rough, guys. These small, like I said, I seen it in Live Oak.
Commissioner Martin.
Intuitively, I think you are correct. However, I think to Commissioner Clark's point, if there was a way for us to potentially gather the actual data about it, I mean, originally probably car dealerships didn't want to be next to each other, but they found out, hey, we actually work better when we're all together. So, I mean, there's expectation, sort of intuition kind of stuff, but I think the data, if we can gather the data, it'd probably be more valuable for us to make a better educated decision on it.
Yes, sir. And like I mentioned earlier, it's heavily dependent on your specifics of your community. You may have, Live Oak was probably hit pretty hard because they had a high concentration of small businesses in one area. When the Walmart moved in, it was a huge competition to all of that. Crawfordville, I think probably the nature of those small businesses are scattered out a little bit farther. And when Walmart came in, it may be that instead of driving up to Tallahassee for things they couldn't get locally, now they could get it locally, and it didn't really have that much of an impact on local businesses because they weren't the same type of local businesses that people would have gone to Tallahassee for anyway. And so, yeah, each community is going to be very different in terms of the impacts that a large retailer is going to have on them.
All right.
One other retailer that doesn't I don't know, that doesn't take away from our small businesses, or as much. For instance, Bass Pro Shop. I don't think they have an automotive or no, I'm just trying to, like when you said tire, I started thinking about a Super Walmart or Walmart in general, batteries, tires. I mean, they cover a lot of things that we have downtown here in the city of Newberry. So I was thinking, why not other retailers that may not hurt the city of Newberry as much as a Walmart? Because Walmart is.
Yeah, I think you can make the ordinances and the guidelines, but I don't know that you could say, I don't want this business, not that business. But I mean, the special exception gives you the most flexibility to say our community needs this or our community doesn't need this. I think you're still kind of walking on a thin line at that point. But I mean, I think you can absolutely say these areas of town, right? This building standard, right? We want the parking lot in the back. We want trees in the parking lot, those kinds of things. But I don't know that we can say we want Aldi, not Winn-Dixie, right? Or we want
Bass Pro. Because I love Bass Pro.
Yeah.
That ain't gonna
I'll take
happen.
Bass Pro.
Mr. Mayor, it's the same thing. I mean, getting educated on this first and foremost is the best way to do it. But when people buy this land, it's the same when they come before this board and we see it, planning, everybody gives it right here. The staff does it, we do it. We all have to make the hard decisions, whether you're getting 500 houses in a new subdivision or commercial up front. When they buy the land and they sink millions of dollars into it, it's almost their land to do what they want to with, as long as they meet the standards that we set forth.
Which is why it's important to set the standard.
So if we're going to set the standard, but what I mean is, I don't know that we can, as a board, you can't say no when they're ready to come and they meet all the standards to the LDR or any code we have.
Well, that's why we got to set the standard.
That's right.
If we set the standard
let's
now,
set the standard, and if it's tough, it's tough, but.
Brian, I appreciate you putting this together and all that we can do to, all the info we can get, because, man, this is coming. It's coming.
Yeah, and Yeah, total speculation on my part, but if you look at what Publix did, we're getting the largest Publix in Alachua County because they see all the growth that's going on. I got to imagine that another retailer is going to look at that same analysis and say, yeah, we're planning for not just for right now, but for the future, and we're going to put a bigger than at least on the larger end of what they do. So regardless of who the retailer is.
All right, so you got marching orders to go get some more data, get some examples, and we'll come back when we have a full board. And
I got one. So we're saying here, we're looking at what the economic effect is to our.
No, we're saying that one of the things we should do is put in this, make them do the economic effect study. Because right now, the state says if you want to say no to a development like this, we have to do the economic study to figure out how much we're costing the community. So we put it in the ordinance, we say, look, you've got to do that study to find out what it is. All right. Good. Marching orders, continue the conversation at another date.
Thank you,
All right.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. We appreciate it. That brings us to comments. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That last agenda item was one of the times that I enjoy when we're proactive, especially in planning. As busy as things have been for the last several years, it feels like we're always reactive. But we were in a staff meeting and our planning group was talking about, hey, we're inevitable that a big box is going to show up, and what does the community think about that? That's what started this conversation, and thought, well, here's a chance for us to ask all these questions and get feedback before it ever gets here and make sure we're as teed up for it as we're going to be. So I appreciate our planning staff for thinking forward, and we'll continue. We'll have a town hall meeting to get some feedback. We'll come back with some examples, and we'll see where this conversation is best for Newberry to go. Mr. Mayor, last week we held a neighborhood meeting to talk about paving roads. So that's not a volatile subject at all. And I was surprised at a lot of the feedback. Some of the primary feedback we got back was that people are really happy with the grading job that we've been doing. It turns out that if you'll make a big investment in lime rock and get a good motor grader operator, that you can do a lot more with the road than if you don't invest in that lime rock. So I'd say over the last 3 years, the commission gave us direction, told us to fund it, and Jamie and his team have really worked hard to get loads and loads of lime rock out on the road so that the motor grader operators have something to grade. And so we had people suggesting that the unpaved portion of Southwest 30th Avenue was a lot better ride than the paved portion just to the east of it, which is county maintained. That had nothing to do with us or you guys, but just some of the feedback we got. Jamie made a presentation, and it's I guess phase number one of trying to pave Southwest 30th is we can't pave it unless we obtain the land rights. And Southwest 30th is on a section line, and our code of ordinances say that that if you own property adjacent to a section line, when you develop it, you got to convey 40 foot. So we'll end up with an 80-foot right-of-way down section lines. I'm 99% confident that we inherited that code from Alachua County, that somewhere back in the 60s or 70s, the county decided that that's what they were going to do for transportation planning, and they assigned section lines as where all their transportation corridors would be. And because most all these roads that we talk about as section line roads were not in the city limits until after 2000. So, but the meeting was very informative, and but didn't get any sense that folks wanted those roads paved. I think that was kind of the walk-away sense from it. We'll have a report for the commission because it was a general body meeting. I'd say a little less than half of the residents were in attendance. So Jamie is following up with everybody. If they didn't attend, he's giving on the presentation. If they attended, he's just answering questions. And we're going to kind of see where the majority of property owners are that live on that road.
and we'll report that back to the commission. If it looks like we are pretty close to 100% are willing to convey the property, then we'll have some confidence that that's the way to go. If it looks like a high percentage are not willing to convey the property, then we'll have some decision-making for our policymakers about, well, how would you like for us to proceed with those types of things?
Can I pause you right there?
Sure.
Because there was one important element of that meeting, that there was a discussion that if people convey the property over, that if this board doesn't move forward in a significant way with the paving process, that it would go back, I think it was 10 years.
Yeah,
right?
correct.
So when we had been talking about 30th, kind of the thought was, well, let's go ahead and get the property first. That's kind of phase one. Then we'll come back to having a conversation about what to do with it after that. But I think with that caveat, because it will take us close to half of that, right? And once we have the property, to see the project all the way through. So basically what you're saying is, sometime within year 0 and 5, we would have to go ahead and initiate that. So we are kind of saying, if we take the property, we do have the intention of paving this within the next decade. And I think this body does want to pave roads. I think you guys do, but I think that's just important to know, because that's not quite the nature of the conversation as it has progressed at this point, right? So taking the property does start a clock, right? Thank you.
And great point, Mr. Mayor. I think another point that I took away from it is that the people that live on those streets see them as local streets and neighborhood streets. And I think that those roads were planned to be collectors. And they serve well as collectors. And I think addressing that for the adjacent property owner, that, we weren't proposing major highways. We were talking about building it to a local street standard. But there was a recognition that if we pave that street, we're going to see traffic counts transition from what they are today, which is 200 trips a day or less, to something higher. And there was concern about that. I think that it's a legitimate concern, but I also think that no, they're planned to be collector streets, whether it's in 10 years or whether it's in 50 years. So, part of it is us educating about how transportation planning moves into the future, and the things that we do to understand how we will move traffic as our community grows, and generally that growth is inevitable if we start looking out on a 50 or 100-year horizon. So I thought it was a fantastic meeting. Jamie and his team really put together a great presentation, and Jamie is better on his feet than I think we give him credit. He's done a few of those, and he is really good at it. So we'll continue to collect information, and then we'll have a presentation back to the commission about where things are and seek direction from you guys. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to report that the commission is very interested in us moving infrastructure projects forward, and we're doing our best, but we put out the turn lanes on Southwest 4th Avenue out for bid, and after a 45 or 60-day bid period, we got exactly 0 bids on it. So when we did a little survey to find out, why don't you bid on it, we got consensus back that, well, frankly, we just don't like the commission. Nah, I'm kidding. Everybody's busy. Everybody's just busy. They got tons of work, and this wasn't the type of big enough project to get them particularly enthused about it. So we're going to take another run at getting bids. We're going to lean a little harder on some of the local roadway. Southwest 4th, the turn lanes out from right where it intersects State Road 45 between Bev's and the middle school. So it's kind of smaller project. Dip your toe into paving and transportation improvements. We have good design, and we want to get it. The urgency is we felt like we needed to get it done over the summer before school starts. We were going to start June the 1st, and we're going to have it done by August 15th. So we'll keep working on that. Just wanted to report to the commission where we were on that.
Can we get a deal with Bev's Burgers, and all the people who are working on that, they get a free burger every lunch shift? I mean, that'll seal the deal, right?
Okay.
You get all the bids will happen.
That is a terrific idea, Mr. Mayor. I'm writing that down. Mr. Mayor, I want to report the legislative session officially closed last week, and Newberry had a great season in legislative session. We submitted 3 projects for appropriations funding, and we scored victory in 2 of them. We asked for $250,000 in funding for a Veterans Memorial Park, and today it was approved by the House and the Senate with $250,000 in funding. We asked for $1 million in funding at our wastewater plant, and we are currently sitting at $500,000 approved by the House and the Senate. And we asked for, I think, $500,000 for an elevated storage tank, and we were unable to get funding in that. But just talking with our peer cities, most were very surprised that we had 2 projects that are funded in the budget. It's not final. The governor has to sign off on these things, and the governor's got a pretty good veto pen going. So we're going to advocate real hard to his staff as to why these projects are super critical to Newberry. And hopefully in the next 45 days or so, we'll be able to report that those have been finalized and that we should be able to move those projects forward. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my comments.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Attorney? Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk? Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Coleman? Commissioner Clark?
Yes, so, on my
maybe you might write a letter to Angela, so when the things come up that might talk to them on. Veterans Memorial in front of you, so our can actually help.
I think we can do that with a head nod, and Mike, you'll have somebody write that up and let me know. I'll sign it. That way it's ready to go.
So I
Absolutely.
appreciate that, and
Thank you, sir. Mr. Martin?
I have nothing.
Mr. Bezos?
Yes, I do. Thank you. A reminder, Spring Festival, Saturday, April 6th through the 6th, 9 to 4. Once again, it's all completely full, and they're expecting another great turnout. Mike, did they have an update on the speed limits? That hit my head today when I was driving through the northwest side. One of the residents came in and was talking about, I don't know if you guys remember it, talking about how the speed limit is 30 miles an hour, I want to say, on the northwest side, and they were wondering why it was 30 miles an hour and if they can reduce it, and what's the reduced speed that they can get it to. I don't know if you remember.
I do remember the conversation. Generally, our response is that that those speed limits were set by others than our staff team, and that it would take an engineering analysis. I just don't think that Jamie funded this year. We don't get the luxury of just arbitrarily going out and setting speed limits, although I would also, just so everyone doesn't think we've lost our mind, tell you that adjusting a speed limit 5 miles per hour down is nothing that gives me pause in my role. So I think that I haven't followed up with Jamie on that item recently, but I'll make a note here, and I'll follow up with Jamie ASAP.
Okay, yeah, it was asking once I was driving around. Last but not least, let me see here. Mike, when were you born?
About 8:30 in the morning.
What year?
1964.
1964, don't look. So,
Absolutely.
you were born 1964? All right, so this pertains to you too. So the Big Mac, was that before you or after you? Its
McDonald's Big Mac?
McDonald's Big Mac.
I would presume before.
Are you
me.
older than the Big Mac?
I doubt it. I think the Big Mac is older than Commissioner Coleman and me.
not that name, but
What do you mean? I can't tell.
years. I think 1959
Ray Kroc.
The Big Mac, 1967.
Yep.
Oh, look at there.
1967 is when it was.
Remember that?
Huh?
Who doesn't remember that?
I don't.
I was aware, Commissioner Mazon, I was aware that I'm older than dirt. I was not aware that I'm older than a Big Mac.
I'm older than a Big Mac, but I was 3 years old.
Well, I would have guessed I'd eaten 1,967. That would have been right spot on.
That's all I have.
Again, I just want to say thank you to staff. This was a great meeting, as I think it should be on when you have a bunch of second readings on things. My only ask is that I know that the Education First and Newberry folks have asked for a third-party look at their budget, those kinds of things. I think that that's coming at the next meeting.
Next meeting, I should have mentioned that, Mr. Mayor.
And I know that when we were doing all of our research on impact fees, we kind of eliminated education impact fees because it didn't really apply to us. But the vote is coming at us fairly soon, and I think it might be worthwhile to kind of dust off some of that information on education impact fees so that we know, whatever we can know before the vote so that we can move expeditiously through that process, because there's going to be some significant funding needs to expand those schools and those kinds of things. So obviously there's nothing pressing on that. We got to wait and see how the vote goes, but it might be worth just a perusal of that file. I'm sure that Dallas has probably saved a whole impact fee file on his computer.
We know an expert.
Yeah. Okay, that's does it for me. Did I miss anything, Miss Judy? No? Okay. Citizen comments. Come on now, sir.
My name is Ralph Williams.
I want to tell you a real Oh, there we go. I'm sorry. All right. Do I need to? I'm Ralph Williams. And I'm going to tell you a brief story. My wife and I have 4 sons. Our youngest son was born with failure to thrive syndrome. And if you know anything about that, he's underweight. You feed him everything that you can, and he's still not gaining weight. Caused us a lot of concerns through the younger years. He was very small, and as he was growing up, I found that there were actually some advantages of him being small. He was like a little monkey. He loved to run. We had this thing where he would jump. He'd put his foot here, grab hold, and he'd kind of shimmy his way up till he was sitting on my shoulders, and I could take him and pick him up. It was a lot of fun, and but it caused my wife and me a lot of concern, through the early years. Somewhere around 12 years old, I don't know what happened. Somebody from a concrete or cement company came and filled his bones up. And almost overnight, he grew and he became solid. And I remember the first time that he hit me in the back after getting that kind of extra strength and that kind of structure, it nearly killed me. And for the first time, my wife and I were actually able to breathe a sigh of relief because he was growing normally. It was also about that same time that our second son was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And so we spent several months dealing with that situation. It turned out to be benign. They were able to remove it, and everything went well, but there were more months of worry. The reason why I tell you those 2 stories is that in both cases there was growth. And it's the kind of growth that we're looking at here in Newberry. When growth happens and it's normal and everything is working great, you breathe a sigh of relief, you look around and you enjoy being where you are. But when growth is abnormal, it indicates that there's a problem somewhere, even to the point of being called cancer. The reason why I say this, I want to just extend my appreciation to you as a commission for addressing these concerns, the things with the big boxes, the things with the housing developments. You guys all do this because you wanted to get rich and popular. I know that, but still, I appreciate the fact that you're proactive and you're dealing with these things, and you're doing it in a way that's for the good of the town. I want to say thank you for that. The decisions that you're going to be making in the years to come, it's not just for Newberry. I hear people all the time saying, I just love going to Gainesville. But when we get a Walmart here, or we get a Publix here, I'll promise you, I'll drive to Chiefland before I go to the Walmart over in Gainesville. I go to the Lowe's in Alachua before I go to the one in Gainesville, because I just don't like going there. I like coming here even better, and that's going to be people in High Springs, people in Archer, people in surrounding towns. So you're making decisions not just for us, but for a lot of other people, and that's a lot of weight. I appreciate you getting out ahead of it. I appreciate you doing what it takes to make those decisions, and I just want you to know, you got somebody behind you, and my wife and I will always be grateful for the opportunity to live here. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir, and you're welcome to come back and make a comment any meeting, sir. Other public comments? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Don't go anywhere. We got one or two more meetings tonight. All right, we will call this March 11th Board of Adjustment meeting to order. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as it was published?
Motion.
I have a motion from Commissioner Bazan, a second from Commissioner Barton. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Seeing none, public comments, questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
I have a motion from Commissioner Bazan, second from Commissioner Martin. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. That brings us to our one and only agenda item, which is a quasi-judicial public hearing on Resolution 2024-68/V24-01. Because we're entering quasi-judicial procedures, this means the commission will stop being a legislative body and become a judicial board. This means we have to follow certain rules here to a different standard of decision-making. Primary rule must follow concerns testimony, and this is based on common evidence standard must be met with the judicial board makes a decision. This standard states the following, and I quote, all public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered in evidence. Giving opinion testimony is limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record. Mr. Tree, would you please read into the record the resolution?
Resolution of the City Commission serving as the Board of Adjustment of the City of Newberry, Florida for approval of a variance petition as authorized under Section 3.2.5 of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, granting a 5-foot encroachment onto and into the required 10-foot side yards setback for an addition to an existing single-family residence on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida. Repealing all resolutions in conflict, providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is pass the resolution as read by title only.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, would you please swear everybody in, applicant, staff, anybody wanting to participate?
What's your name, starting?
John Paul Perez.
Mark Kimberly.
Do you hereby swear affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Do you have any duties?
Thank you, ma'am. Ex parte, Commissioner Coleman?
None.
Commissioner Clark?
None.
Commissioner Martin?
None.
Commissioner Bazan?
Small conversation, just like I'll put my input.
All right. I'm a non-voting mayor. I have nothing to disclose as well. We're going to hear from the staff with the overview. The applicant has the opportunity to make a presentation with no time limit if he wants. Staff has the opportunity to give their report and recommendation also with no time limit. I have not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status. That's going to move us to public comment. And members of the public wishing to speak to this agenda item have 3 minutes to do so. Then we'll have cross-examinations, and then members' decision-making body, through the chair, can ask questions of the applicant or staff. Then we'll hear final arguments, and the city attorney will advise the decision-making body applicable law and factual findings. Then we'll deliberate, and after deliberation, we'll have a motion. Go ahead, John Paul, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, John Paul Perez, Planning and Economic Development Department. The request before you tonight is a reduction of the side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet. This is for an existing single-family home in the Newberry Oaks subdivision. The property owners' names are Jennifer, or she goes by Jenna, and Mark, who is here in the gallery now. Kimmerling, and they reside at 711 Northwest 232nd Terrace. It's a property location map where you can see the home inside of the Newberry Oaks subdivision. Here's a more close-up image, and this image shows the required setbacks on the property. and you can see the houses sited right up to the front one is wide enough to where the eaves touch both the side yard setbacks, and that's representative of a 10-foot setback there, which is the required setback. And then the rear 25 or 15 feet, and you can see there's a little bit of room there in the rear. The family is growing. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong. You currently have 2 children and you're expecting a third, or is it 3 children and expecting a fourth?
We have 3 children. All 3 girls, and all 3 different personalities. Different schedules,
Yeah.
so need some extras.
Awesome. So it's a young family. It's a growing family. The need for the setback, and I believe this is because of the interior layout of the home. I'll let Mark elaborate on it a little bit more, but they have a series of bedrooms at the front of the house. It's at the northwest corner of the home, and the bedroom addition they're doing is in line with the other existing bedrooms for the children in the home. So it's, for them, the most logical place to place the bedroom addition in context of the existing floor layout. And so this is the location of the addition that they're going to be proposing, and you can see where it's now extending off of that north wall into that side yard setback, up to 5 feet from the property line. 5 feet's a significant number for me, and I think for the city as well, because 5 feet on the side, if both parties provide 5 feet on the side, both parties are then still continuing that Florida Building Code requirement of having 10 feet of separation between structures. So 5 would be kind of like your minimum for a habitable structure to be separated from a side yard setback. Still meeting the safety standards, but in this case, requesting a variance for what are the setback standards which are established by the city. So this is that bedroom addition. They're going to be adding a closet for the adjacent bedroom, as well as a bedroom and a closet for the child. And you see there's no ensuite here, so this is not like a new master suite that they're creating. This is intended for a small individual. Here is just again that aerial with the addition shown in cyan, where it would be located. They also obtained a letter from the neighbor to the north stating no objection to the requested variance. So the one party that would be affected by this variance has stated that they don't object to the requested variance. And again, that addition, those required yards, and would just be that north side yard setback would be reduced to 5 feet. And that's what it would effectively look like from a regulatory perspective. The distance between the two structures, 40 feet currently. That's from eave to eave. There's probably another 3 feet to play with there. And our recommendation is to leave it to the board to decide whether they approve approval conditions or deny the request. Staff does find that this does satisfy the criteria of a variance request, and there's no reason in the code to object to this request. So.
I'm sorry, we're quasi. Public comment. Would you like to make a presentation, sir? You don't have to.
I can give a brief one.
If you want to, but you don't have to. Come on down.
We had something, we did, but it basically, he just covered it right there. It's just a few photos and whatnot.
Thank you, Commissioners, Mayor, for meeting tonight to discuss this. As he said, our family, 3 little girls, and as they are getting older and older, we're just needing more space. And as he was saying, it makes the most sense economically and everything. We're not going to have to add plumbing. We're not going to have to do extra major renovations to the house. It's just a slab and adding that room. And all 3 would be located in the same spot and have access to the bathroom right there really easy. So as I've gone through this process, first-time homeowner, been there for 10 years, family grew, and it's kind of like just learning setbacks are something that I've never heard of, never experienced until obviously going through this process. We do have a contractor, and that was the first thing he brought up, is like, what's the setbacks? Because he saw that as a potential hardship holding us from being able to do what we were hoping to do.
But we appreciate that contractor.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they don't advise.
Yeah, no, he's a gentleman from my church, and so he's been helping me throughout this whole little process as well. And
You said 3 girls?
3 girls.
So how much bigger are you making the bathroom? Because you're going to have to double that.
Well, I
Yeah.
can say that they do like taking showers in the master bathroom.
Yeah.
You know, that's about, yeah, interesting that we haven't, they're 10, 8, or they'll be 10, 9, and 2.5 right now. So, yeah, going to be interesting. So.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate you guys hearing this request and just ask for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to ask for public comment, even though there's nobody here. Then we're going to move to, did you hear anything from staff you want to cross-examine, sir? No? All right. Members of the big body, Commissioner Martin.
There is a fence between the 2 neighbors?
Not where the addition would be. Can you come say it? Yes, sir. Yeah, any questions? No, sir, it's not it's not where the addition would be. Our current fence is set behind it. So there's no fencing between us right now where the addition would be. What the image that you're looking at right now, the front of basically that hedge, which is about 15, 16 feet long,
Okay.
is the portion that we would be putting it in. It would be a 12 by 14 foot slab.
Okay. And we have a copy of the letter on file?
The no objection letter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it was included in the packet, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been attachment 3. I don't have a,
I didn't see it.
no, okay. I can make it available to the commission.
I just want to make sure we have it, and we've actually seen it. Okay.
Other questions from the dais? No. Commissioner Clark?
I think JP answered them all. The safety was another one. So really and truly, this is in the front.
Yes,
In the
so
front
you're
corner.
looking at the front, you're looking at the street view,
Looking at your house?
looking at our house,
Yeah.
and we wanted to just kind of show, that is our property line right there where those boxes are. You can kind of see where I've mowed the
Yeah.
yard. We are somewhat unique in that on our side of the street, there's only 4 houses, and this actually happens to be the largest lot to our north. And so our distance between our homes, even with if we were to put the addition there, it would not change the feel of
Yeah.
the neighborhood. As you drive through, there's substantial, it would be like 35 feet between the 2 of us. Yeah.
Other questions? Seeing none, did you want to make a final argument, sir?
No, sir.
Do you want to make a final argument, John Paul?
No, sir.
Okay, Mr. Attorney, would you advise us to make a findings book below factual findings?
It is substantial and competent evidence, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Sir.
We'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll have a motion.
Move to approve.
I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman, a second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments, questions, on the motion on the floor for the dais? Public comments, questions, on the motion on the floor. Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
I'm
Unanimous. You got me. I'm dying over here. You're throwing me these curveballs.
I figured I could.
All right, topics for members' discussion. We got another meeting, so I'm going to skip that.
Actually, I would be unanimous.
Congratulations.
We are adjourned. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. We got one more meeting. Yeah. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call to order this Community Redevelopment Agency Board. Do I have approval of the agenda as it was published?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Barton,
Second, can I get a napkin?
second from Commissioner Bazan. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor of the dais? Public comments, questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Motion passes unanimously. Let's see, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it was published?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Barton, second from Commissioner Coleman. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That's going to move us to the CRA facade grant application for Dr. Wynn. Brian, you going to take us through that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Yep, yes, Mr. Mayor. Okay. So, just a brief refresher. As y'all know, the purpose of the Newberry CRA is to improve the area within the CRA to accumulate some tax increment financing and then spend that money in the CRA district to improve it and increase property values, reducing blighted conditions and over time. Last year, y'all approved the Newberry CRA facade grant, commercial facade grant program, which is designed to incentivize local businesses to improve their overall appearance, especially that faces the main corridors. And so the three general elements for qualification, does it improve the overall economic development of the CRA district? Is it improving the general aesthetic and streetscape of the CRA district, or does it add to the historic preservation of a historic commercial structure? So if it meets any one of those three, it can qualify for a CRA facade grant. So this particular application has a proposed list of improvements. The windows in a lot of these old historic structures made with wood, and so there's some wood rot that needs to be replaced. They'll do the power washing to clean the exterior of the building, and obviously paint the exterior, and they've got some two-tone colors that we'll look at in a moment, and then replace the awning, which is getting old and falling apart, and then they also want to install a bench and some planters and repaint their business sign. And so a fairly extensive facade improvement on the old Ameris Bank building, which is now Wen Family Practice, the doctor's office. Total cost of repairs $10,500. Currently the maximum allowable reimbursement is $5,000, and so they're requesting reimbursement of $5,000. Just as a reminder, this is a reimbursement grant, and so they would have to expend all the funds. If the commission approves the facade grant, they would expend the funds and then provide the documentation for the funds that were expended. Staff would confirm that they're all qualified expenses, and then assuming that it meets all the criteria, which it should, then we'd have a draft agreement to sign up. Just they complied with all the requirements, and then staff could issue the check for reimbursement once all of the confirmations were done. So this is what they refer to as the office area. This is a small section to the side. I think John Paul, who's now left, provided this. He did some photoshopping to try to give an idea of what the facade would look like on the front once that section is completed. So they would go dark on the front with a green trim in the exterior trim features. The wood is going to stay white. The wood around the windows will stay white, and then. Didn't do the photoshopping on this, but the large part of the building there would be the mist gray, and then using the pewter for the architectural details to bring them out, make them stand out more. And so staff does find that it meets two of the criteria in terms of a general commercial aesthetic improvement, and also these are historic structures, and so it would also lend itself to the preservation of existing commercial structures, historic commercial structures. So staff's recommendation is to approve this CRA facade grant for up to half the qualifying expenses, up to a maximum of $5,000.
Brian, is there a sunset? Like he gets the grant, he's got to move forward in a year. I can't remember if we had that conversation. We were talking about this. How long does he get to sit on it before he moves forward?
Mr. Mayor, he would need to basically be complete, I believe, before the end of the fiscal year. So it would come out of this year's approved funds. Otherwise, he would have to come back and reapply next year under the next funding cycle.
All right, Commissioner.
We can touch base with him and do a carry forward.
Yeah. If they're as long as they're making progress, to the city manager's point, as long as they're making progress, we can do a carry forward.
Yeah. Commissioner Clark.
Well, it looks like he has to do the work, then he gets his money back.
Yes, sir.
So
we just have to hold that money because in our world, it's his money once he's done it. So, I mean, $5,000 is not a big
but
amount.
we have plenty in the CRA, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So my question was, if they do, I'm glad this came up tonight, because this is on my notes, because I go to breakfast, and I'm about tired of hearing the CRA money that we have, and these buildings are falling apart over here. How can we push for them to get some money to get the bricks and the dirt and the plants out of the buildings before they start falling on the sidewalk? Can we do that and is this part of this 5,000?
Mr. Mayor, I'm glad that Commissioner Clark brought that up, because one of the suggestions that staff's going to bring forward here shortly is an expansion of the facade grant program for projects that are larger than $10,000. Because, as you point out, there's not just the aesthetic considerations, but there's also some structural considerations that need to be addressed, and those tend to be more expensive. But we also, staff would also like to propose an extension or expansion for larger projects that would also be able to cover something like a parking lot resurfacing, some participation level of things like that, things that are going to do more than just the facade, but they also lend themselves to the improvement of the business district as a whole. And so
I'll agree to all of it. I'm just saying, since day one with the CRA, I've been saying that we've got to get the plants and the bricks back in the buildings, or we ain't gonna have a city in the downtown. I mean, I don't know if it's, they have to do it, they need to do some of their own, but what I'm asking is, in the half, is there a percentage that's the same? They get half if they fix it up for the pressure washing, or is there a?
Yes, sir. I mean,
are they all the same as half?
It's all part of it, and
okay.
Currently up to $5,000 reimbursement.
So that really, some of our stuff really needs to be.
They're not just going to paint over the plants, right? Like when they're up there painting, they'll pull the plants out, right?
Have you seen America Today, Mr. Mayor? They need to be seriously pressure washed.
Yeah.
Bricks need to be put mortar back in, and they need to be put back together. I'm just saying. I ain't a rocket scientist, but I am a scientist.
I only know enough about historic preservation to be a little bit dangerous, but you can't just yank them out. You got to kill them first. Let some time go by where they become softer, and there's a process for it.
Stuff's ready to start falling apart.
Yes, sir.
And each winter and summer it
gets worse.
Commissioner Martin.
Brian, I don't know where they intend on putting the bench, but let's just make sure that they're aware that we don't want it encroaching too much on the sidewalk or anything like that.
I think there's a fence out there right now.
And one thing that we could do downtown is to paint the handrail.
Yes, sir. That could.
No, we haven't done that yet. We did the light poles.
We could certainly do that. If we made that a project under next year's budget and accomplished it in the beginning of next year, it would at least last for a few years until the streetscaping gets redone by FDOT. There is a little bit of a consideration is how much we want to spend in advance of what they're going to do, because once they come through and redo everything, we don't want to have spent a significant amount of money on something that they're just going to come behind us and undo. So we need to kind of keep that in mind, but we could definitely get a hold of FDOT, find out where they're at in their plans for the streetscape.
Let's get back to the dock here. What do we think about the dock?
So moved.
I got a motion from Commissioner Barton. Second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments, questions, motion for the dice?
Yeah, so I was just trying to wait.
Go ahead.
Yes, hey, so, Jesus. My God.
I thought that only happened to people my age.
Does this fall under the overlay district if they make changes like this?
Mr. Mayor, the downtown area in the historic district has a different set of criteria that follow the historic preservation guidelines and things and suggestions, architectural suggestions. And so yes, but it's a different set than what's outside of the downtown historic district.
Okay, any other questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, public comments, questions, seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, Brian, glad you're not going anywhere. Take us through the grant application.
And we're excited to announce we have our second CRA facade grant application. This one's a little bit smaller scale. It's a lot smaller building to work with. This is, as it says, the Dirty Bird Art Studio. We won't go through the purpose again or those. This project, they have a smaller list of the project, and they've actually already begun the work. They would be more than happy to accept CRA money, but they decided they had to get started because they were anxious to get improvements going. They had a fair amount of window repairs needed to be done because of wood rot. So they've been working on that. They did the power washing. They've got most of the painting done, I think, and then they're still going to have to do repair on the awning, somewhere on the awning. Their total project cost was $5,400, and then so that would make the maximum allowable reimbursement at $2,700. That was the before picture, and you can see, some of the wood rot issues that they're dealing with. This is where the state where they're at right now. This was a current picture for today. So they've already made some substantial improvements. I think they still have a little ways to go to finish. And so they're, again, seeking $2,700 in reimbursement, or up to $2,700. And again, that would be confirmed with their actual invoices for their expenses. If it came out to be a little bit more, we could repetition for a little bit more, or if it came out less, then they would only be qualified up to half of whatever their expense was. So if they spent less, they'd be less than the $2,700.
Brian, does it have any effect that they've already started to work?
No, sir. It's a reimbursement grant.
But you can't go back 5 years ago and say, hey, I did something.
No,
all right, Commissioner Bard?
To your point, I'm willing to make a motion and allow them to go up to the point where we would be paying the $5,000 total if they wanted to actually go crazy and do a little bit more than what they have already, reimbursement basis.
Okay, yes, sir. We can do that.
Any other comments? Comments, questions? You want to put that in the form of a motion?
I was trying to do that. Maybe I was fumbling myself. Move to approve up to $5,000 if needed on a reimbursement basis.
Okay.
Good job.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, a second from Commissioner Bazan. Comments, questions, motion on the floor. Public comments, questions, motion on the floor. Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Motion passed unanimously. Brian, would you start a file on your computer with all of these before pictures? Because I think in a couple of years, we're going to want to see
Yes, sir.
what it looked like, and it's all going to blend out different. All right, that brings us to comments. Executive Director, do you have any comments?
No, Mr. Mayor, just what we already talked about a little bit, that staff's going to come forward with a couple of different proposals to get the board's input. One would be an expanded facade program that would cover more things than just the facade, like I said, potentially parking lots and that kind of thing.
Wouldn't it be because what I heard Commissioner Clark talk more about was structure, like a structural grant program.
And accommodate for that
The
as well.
facade is visual, painting, but what I heard is bricks and actually repairs, which that may just be $1 grand a year, because that could go up, but something that actually, right.
They do some, we do some.
Yeah.
But we need to do something.
All right, so we got the structural grant program, and we got painting the rails.
That's
All right. Perfect.
And then staff also intends to bring forward a recommendation and see where the board would like to go. Remember the student project, looking at downtown Newberry and some of their suggestions, staff would like to come back with a proposal on actually developing the vacant lot next door, a downtown gathering place, using CRA funding.
All right. CRA attorney?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
CRA clerk?
CRA.
All right. Commissioner, our CRA board member, I'm sorry.
You need to recall.
I do. I've already had about 8 of them. Throw it here, let me see how my aim is. Ooh, look at that. Good job. Nothing. Commissioner Clark, board member Clark, board member Barton.
I had actually somebody bring up to me the feasibility of actually closing that section between Dr. Wynn's office and 1906 and trying to create an outdoor sort of event space downtown as opposed to, or maybe in addition to the park. But What I guess I think they were likening it to is sort of how the Great Outdoors has their space off to the side of the building. And I know Jamie tried to do something, but it was kind of janky with the cement barriers and all that stuff. But I don't know what would go into that of us, abandoning that or selling that. But I just wanted to bring that up, when you have time. Because we actually, I don't know if it was before you, city manager, we actually pulled out a planter out of there for the fire truck to be able to turn in there. So there used to be that in there also, and there's not that in there anymore, but I don't know. It was a worthwhile mental exercise, I suppose.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, right now there's actually a design project underway using CRA funds for design to re-streetscape that road. It might be, as part of that, we could incorporate ways to close it for special events, keep it open throughout the rest of the remainder of the week, because there's a lot of delivery trucks that go in and out that need that access for the restaurant. But part of the redesign of that street could be to incorporate means for closing it temporarily for special events. Like if there's if we do a band shell or something across the street, then we have a downtown festival, we could close that street to make more open space, temporary seating for outdoor festival or whatever, and then when it's no longer being used for the festival, open it back up rather than close it completely. There's a lot of different possibilities there.
I think the concept was...
Mr. Mayor, in terms of conveying a public right-of-way, we can vacate it and give half to either side of the street, but I don't know of any way for us to vacate it and give the whole street to one side or the other, or to ourselves. I think that we have discussed eliminating the parking, that the buildings make sure that the 50-foot right-of-way we have in there is all that we have. There's not, it is 50 foot from brick to brick in that building. But we could move the travel lanes over towards the east side and have an expanded seating area for the restaurant on the west side of the road. That's pre-COVID, that was what we were trying out with Jamie. Jamie just wasn't trying very hard.
We're talking about J.B. Griffin, the owner, not J.B. Jones.
Yeah, 1906, we were trying to that because we had to protect the patrons in there. Right. But it didn't work that well, but it's still a good idea. And we can, when we are working on design concepts for that street, we'll bring a rendering of that, what that would look like if the commission would like to see it with additional seating on one side of the street for the restaurant. If the commission wants to see what a rendering looks like, we close it all together, we can make that happen as well.
Well, in those original concepts that we were working on a few years ago, when we were paving the parking lot at the annex building for the delivery trucks, the idea was to create kind of a loop around so that people could, if you had the on-street dining that kind of took up some area, you created more parking and the ability for those trucks to get all the way in and out. But the owner just never moved forward with the outside dining in anything but the janky way. Yeah. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
CRA board member Mazon?
I'm good. Thank you.
I have nothing either, except it's lovely to see these facade grants moving forward, and Commissioner Coleman is ready to go home. I made it. I made it through the whole night.
Commissioner Martin.